Hello, greetings. I am Gilles Mansillon. I thought I'd come back to read the English version of my book. I recommend you start from the beginning. It is a rough translation. It will be refined and details will be added by the time it gets into print. But this is a preview of it, about this book about interdimensional travel and spiritual ascension. Chapter number 7. Before I continue with this presentation and move to the next step of my expose, I thought it would be interesting to present a few biographical information on how I arrived there, and also to discuss other forms of creativity that have been governing my life for a number of years. I will limit this presentation to this present incarnation. Although I had the chance to see, to realize, and to know a number of incarnations or lifetimes that I had on this planet as well as on many others. The subject of past life is too vast and too personal to be addressed and discussed within the context of this book, and I also thought it would not be appropriate to speak of such things as it would about my own past lives on the earth, as it would surely distract from the message I wish to convey or I wish to express today. And so I will not approach this directly, even if all those past lives are important, as they have led us to become who we are today, and so they are an integral part of who we are. I was born in Paris in the early morning of a spring day, and I have been told that the snow was falling heavily on the city that day. I spent the largest part of my childhood and teenage years in a little village in the western suburb of Paris. My family was originally from Provence, and so it is where I spent most of my school vacation. I also had a chance to travel from a very young age to diverse countries of Europe, as well as in Madagascar, where I also had family. Very early on in life, I've been attracted to the arts and sciences, but in school the only discipline for which I had a real talent and feeling of ease was mathematics. I would have chosen to pursue a traditional study in that direction in order to pursue a traditional scientific career if I did not find the academical demand and competitive structure of the academic system too restrictive and restraining. I could not get used to the competitive and constant pressure of the academical system that forced us to memorize static information that I was finding for the most part without any real substance, or as far as I would relate it to something that I would feel would be real for me. And so I quickly lost interest in those subjects and programs. I then decided to shift towards an artistic career and to join the Parisian art school, understanding rightfully that this would make my life easier and more pleasant. After 1 year of study at the Académie Charpentier, I moved to the United States with my mother, where I continued my art education, first at the College of Santa Fe in New Mexico, then at Otis Parsons in Los Angeles, California. So after a year I spent in this university, I left the academical world and went to open up a major contemporary art gallery. I had a chance to do so in excellent condition, although I had no capitals, in the magnificent space near the ocean in Santa Monica, and with the support and patronage of many well-known artists in the California scene. At that time I was only 19 years old, and my own paintings were not yet evolved enough to consider becoming an artist, so to become an art dealer seemed to be an acceptable compromise and a way that was appropriate for me, so that I could continue to enjoy a high quality of life while at the same time staying in close connection with the art world. That also opened up the possibility to always have high quality paintings and sculptures around me, as well as to meet and interact with many different kinds of artists, interesting and cultured people, as well as to continue to learn about art history and the business world. 2 years later, I had to close my gallery in Santa Monica in order to continue my career as an art broker and a private art dealer. I had to do this not to support the cost of running such a large gallery, because Southern California was not yet the ground of predilection of major collectors whom were, for the most part, still favoring New York City to make their most important acquisition at the time. I also did not have the enough experience in the domain of selling art to make this operation really lucrative. So when it became a burden more than a joy, I made the choice to change my mode of operation and to continue my activities privately. At that time, I was also wanting to specialize in modern art and to become a broker until I was able to acquire the paintings I loved and enjoyed, but they were already in the 1980s very expensive. On top of that, the fact that I had to deal with all kinds of art and all kinds of period for diverse clients, because as a broker I could only pursue those artworks that were of interest to my friends and clients, forced me to learn much about classical and old masters, about the lives of the artists, as well as many technical information on those works as they relate of condition and history. That also led me to maintain a relation to many curators, dealers, collectors that I would have never had a chance to meet or to be in contact with as a young artist or even as a gallery dealer handling only young and emerging artists. It was in the summer of 1985 that an unexpected event happened in my life that created a great and permanent transformation while I was living in Hollywood, California. I met someone very spiritual who was also a shaman and who was talking to me about traveling into the universe. He brought me a book, or to be more exact, he brought a book to my mother who gave it to me immediately to read, that had a golden cover where was written "The Truth by God." I thought that was kind of strange since I had received no religious education and the experience of spirituality for me had been limited to the advent of my baptism at the age of 3 months. I grew up in a family that was Cartesian and agnostic on my father's side, and although my mother grew up in a family that was Catholic, she did not wish to impose any sorts of belief system on me. So the simple fact that this book came into my hand was somewhat strange, but after reflection, for sure not an accident, notwithstanding my disbelief in religions. I took the time to read this book that awoke a great deal of question about the reality of the truth that is presented in this document, as well as about life in general. This book is an initiatic Buddhic treatise of the highest spiritual frequency that explains the way that we need to follow in order to reach the state of Buddha. Note number 46. Ascended Master that is a prototype of consciousness who came to teach us compassion and to help humanity break free of the cycle of karma, to return to the state of perfect illumination. In its sublime doctrine, we can mention the 8 ways of rectitude: the right vision, the right thoughts, the right words, the right actions, the right life, the right effort, the right knowledge, and the right meditation. At the age of 80, he entered into nirvana, the sphere of pure quietude and pure and serene quietude where all mental confections cease to exist. His life is known by the Lalita Vistara. Return to my reading. This document was going the Buddha, so reaching the state of Buddha. This document was going even beyond that, explaining the non-vehicle, note number 47, or what we need to do to go beyond that state, enter in fusion with all states, and return to the rank of God, the rank of truth. Note number 47, non-vehicle. It is a spiritual vehicle or light body that is different from any other vehicle known or revealed. In the tradition of spiritual teaching, it is often given the name of great vehicle, the one that is being used by the master himself or herself to achieve salvation, and by the name of small vehicle, the one that comes from the teachings of the master, so that the adept can follow the spiritual way in order to attain the eternal liberation from karmic obligation. It has been revealed that the non-vehicle is a supreme vehicle which allows one to achieve the realization of the truth, and the vehicle that allows one to enter into the void of void, which is the state of total existence, or the absolute reality of the original creator. I'll return to my reading. I read this book once, then many times, in order to integrate and assimilate the information that was contained therein. And that turned out to be a very powerful message of divine love and wisdom. That book became an essential guide towards spirituality for me and the revelation of an extraordinary wisdom that I could apply each and every day, each and every moment of every day. Before that time, the only true practice that I had to do with spirituality and that I had followed was the dedicated study of the I Ching, note number 48, as well as the study of the Tao Te Ching, as well as some traditional philosophy. The I Ching, note number 48. The I Ching is the book of transformation or the book of mutation. Translated from the Chinese, it is a very ancient tradition of oracle. It comes from the unique principle that informs us that a yin and a yang is the Tao. The superposition of three lines, full or open, yin or yang, form a trigram, and two trigrams superposed on top of one another forms an hexagram. From that standpoint, there is only 8 trigrams possible and 64 different hexagrams. The 64 hexagrams represent the complete cycle of natural events as well as the diverse situations that compose human experience. The oracle given in the Book of Transformation proposes a way of the noble man or the superior man by dictating a mode of conduct which is most appropriate to each situation and based on the internal motive of the person that consults the oracle. Each of the hexagrams has an image that represents a situation and a judgment that's been attributed in order to guide human beings towards the way of wisdom, no matter what the circumstances might be. It exemplifies through the oracle the way of the superior man needs to follow if he wishes to be in harmony with divine wisdom and correct conduct. The I Ching come from ancient China, and the most recent addition to this book were those of Mencius, of Confucius, and of Lao Tzu, whom contributed precious commentary to some of the decisions. The hexagrams are arranged by pair, which are most often made up as opposite or contrary. The translation that I use and the one that is most recommended is the one of Richard Willem, translated from German. So I return to my reading. I had also received various initiations to diverse techniques of meditation that intrigued me, but I did not have much result with them because at that time I was still holding preconceived ideas that were obstacles to such experiences. That being said, the more I was entering into the knowledge that contained within the book, the more I could feel that there was a very special message in there that was specially directed to me and destined to find me. It was as if this sacred book came to awaken me to the true meaning of life and of my life in particular. These manuscripts have never been diffused or published to be sold in the general public. It comprised 64 questions and answers between the spiritual school of non-being, note number 49, and the providential presence of the creator of all beings and all things, who utilized the body of a young woman for that communication. That document was the transcript of a recording of that dialogue and then was translated from Vietnamese into French, English, as well as a few other languages to be printed in a few hundred copies in each language and to be given by hand to the people that were destined to receive it. After reading it a few times, I made myself about 50 copies to send to people I love, as I wanted to share with them this extraordinary discovery I had just made and share my enthusiasm in order to transmit this marvelous information. But I soon came to realize that everyone in my circle of friends were not open to the way of the higher spirituality. Note number 49, the Spiritual School of Non-Being. It is a school that's been formed in 1945 by Master Du Tuan Hao, Master Tu, and that is known as the Dharma of Non-Being, esoterical science of Buddha, science of non-being, or even science of Vovi. The knowledge and teaching are right now were attended by Master Luang Sihong, Master Tam, who departed this world in 2009. It is a pragmatic spiritual school which comprises 3 essential phases of spiritual exercises. 1. Exercise of concentration of the spiritual energy. in order to reaffirm the strength of our nervous system and to develop lucidity. 2. Breathing exercise. Breathing abdomino-ophthalmoscopic and breathing without retention of breath, or setting in motion the wheel of the law, dharma, looking to purify the physical organism and to develop serenity. Number 3. There are exercises of contemplative meditation that permits the ascension of the supraconsciousness in order to enter into the harmony with the universe and find a way to return to the source, the origin. In virtue to the principle of non-being, in the tradition of the esoterical science of non-being, there is no structure, organization, or hierarchy, no master or guru in Sanskrit, in the acceptation of such a term. There is no contribution to give or ceremony of initiation. Each adept is its own master, and the method belongs to he who practices it. By courtesy, we call Mr. Tu and Mr. Tam by the term master, which is against their own will. I return to my reading. I wanted to say that I made an audio book of the Truth by God, but it's only in French on my YouTube channel. I return to reading. The gods of the religion have never been so attractive to me. I thought it to be way too dogmatic. The god of religion have never been so attractive to me. I thought of it as way too dogmatic, too severely attached to ideas that I thought were backwards, against nature, or even medieval, with rituals that were presented as fastuous, but that were sort of pompous and often lacking in sincerity. This new discovery of a personal God who was living within me and with whom I could communicate with directly was extremely unexpected. The power that its information had on my psychological behavior was really beyond all my expectation and produced a great and deep transformation in my life. This inspired me to seek to perfect myself in order to resemble the Creator, even if the work I had to do to find the smallest trace of perfection in my life was very important. But I did not get discouraged facing the enormity of that task, and I began to take my problem one after the other. No matter what our situation may be, it is never too late to start to improve ourselves. It is always possible to return to the light, no matter what the problem we believe we have with ourselves or with others. It is also possible to forgive, and by that action we free ourselves from karmic attachment that connects us in a negative way to those schemes or situations, and that by making a step into the unity of the light. I need to repeat that it is important key is, I need to repeat an important key, that is to say that the law of love transcends the law of karma. Even a small step in the right direction is always of great value as long as it is not followed by 2 steps backwards. Every step made to improve our love, our lucidity, and our character has great value and must not be underestimated, because it is maybe the very step we need to make before making another and then another, until the day we arrive at the understanding that each step was necessary to achieve our true liberation or salvation. All living experiences on the earth, whether we are aware of it or not, have been programmed by our own soul with a lot of precision in order to fulfill a particular mission that we have chosen for this incarnation. Once we can establish a stable and permanent connection with our soul and spirit, with the source of all life, through our I Am presence, when we engage ourselves in a spiritual ascension path, life is not always a long and calm river, but a winding road that is filled with obstacles. That being said, we only encounter the obstacle that we have ourselves created, often unconsciously, and the spiritual ascension path remains the only way that can provide true deliverance and freedom from all our problems, all our suffering, and all our limitations. After having integrated into my life those spiritual concepts that who were taught in the truth by God, I began to open up to new spiritual experiences that are too personal and too numerous to be discussed here. But I realized that the God that so many people were revendicating the exclusivity through the many religions of the world was not only real, but that all those religions were different ways by which perceive, to understand, and to love that divine, eternal, and infinite Creator. I could also realize that God, in the way that is expressed in the religion, was in truth just a very small part of the Creator of all, just a symbolic representation in order to facilitate the interpretation of value and meaning given by the divine presence to the limited mind of mortal men and women while going through their adventure in time and space. After reading this book, I began to integrate the meaning of the information that was given, and so I can say that I've never been through the process of believing in God, because it is directly the knowledge of the truth of God or the idea of God that came to me directly through the fact that I was open to receive and to accept such a presence within me and in my life. The fact that one may recognize the divine presence within oneself or within all things does not imply that hope and faith are not necessary, because no matter what we may know or believe about God and about life, there is always states of being that are beyond our present experience and that must be embraced through our faith before they can we can integrate them into our conscious experience. The more we have faith, the more our faith is solid, the faster we will progress towards the realization of our spiritual paths, our dreams, and our desire. But sometimes it is somewhat easier to possess faith when we do not know, when faith for what we do not know yet, when we can accept and trust that all come from the love of God and His wisdom as prime source, that are eternal and infinite. It is the Buddha Shakyamuni who once said, I believe, and truly so, that if our faith was only the size of a mustard seed, we could then move mountains. I must say, when I speak of faith, I mean the faith in the eternal wisdom and love of the Creator of all being and in my spiritual guidance and teacher, not about blind faith in external forces or other people, which would inevitably lead to disappointment. To return to the truth by God, it became the true source of inspiration, and the information and guidance provided in this book gave me a great motivation to progress in my personal development. I began to realize that I had to start to correct my mistakes, my shortcomings, and my bad habits, that I had to start to become more disciplined. I understood that the first thing I had to do was to produce an effort to change my diet, because ever since I was a child, I was used to only eating meat as a main source of physical nourishment. That was becoming an obstacle to my spiritual growth, as it was a diet that was too heavy and too violent for me to continue and to feel peace within my own consciousness. It took me many years to change my habit in terms of diet and to be able to really stop eating all those meats I was consuming each and every day. I had to go through steps of a few months each. The first stopping mammals for a few months, then birds, then fish. Everyone must define for themselves their dietary regimen and one that is appropriate and can live with. Personally, I am now able to eat animal from time to time without feeling bothered by it. Yet I know that it is preferable, when we are seeking to progress spiritually, to choose a mode of life that is the purest possible, that is non-violent as light is possible if we are to hope to progress rapidly, and that the vegetarian diet is then preferable. I also understood that I had to practice meditation each and every day, because it was during those moments of quietude that I was able to communicate with the more spiritual aspect of myself, with my Creator and with the world of spirit, so that we may advance in our knowledge and wisdom in order to receive those spiritual experiences that are so remarkable and so personal. I began to realize that all that I ever wanted and more was already buried within myself, and that I only had to clean up my body and empty my mind to receive such experiences. It was not easy at first, but little by little, and with much patience and tenacity, I began to move towards a way of life that was more conscious, serene, and spiritual. End of chapter 7. I will return with chapter 8. Thank you.